However, beyond government policy, there is also a broader responsibility that we must share as a community. Businesses play an important role in maintaining fairness within the marketplace. While costs may increase, we encourage businesses to ensure that pricing reflects actual costs and not unnecessary markups. And when costs decrease, those reductions should also be reflected for consumers. Fair pricing is not only good business practice, it is part of the responsible corporate citizenship within our community. And at the same time, we must also speak honestly about the reality we may face. Global tensions create economic pressure that are beyond the control of any single government. These pressures originate in the global market and affect countries around the world, including small island economies like ours. And because of that, there may be moments when all of us must adjust. It may mean being more mindful about how we manage our household expenses. It may mean driving a little less, sharing rides when possible, or being more selective about what we purchase. It may mean choosing alternatives at the supermarket or paying closer attention to what we can save, where we can save. These are adjustments that households across the world make when global conditions shift, and St. Martin will not be immune to those realities. But what is important is that we face those realities together and responsibly. At the same time, as the Ministry responsibly for Tourism and Economic Affairs, we will continue working to ensure that economic activities on the island remain strong. Tourism remains one of the pillars that sustains our economy and supports thousands of livelihoods across St. Martin. It is therefore critical that we continue to protect what makes our island special. We must continue to remain welcoming, hospitable, and open to the world. Even during uncertain global times, St. Martin must continue to be a destination that people want to visit. In fact, moments like these can also present opportunities. As the world navigates economic uncertainty, we want visitors everywhere to know that St. Martin remains safe, open, and ready to welcome them. Whether there is a returning visitor or someone discovering our island for the first time, St. Martin and his people await you. While we cannot control what happens beyond our borders or beyond our waters, we can control how we respond. By staying informed, maintaining fairness in the marketplace, supporting our local businesses, and continuing to welcome the world to our shores, we will navigate these challenges together. And because history has shown time and time again that when challenges arise, the people of St. Martin adapt, we support one another, and always find a way forward. Madam Chairlady, that concludes my presentation. I thank the honorable members of Parliament and the people of St. Martin for their attention, and I assure you that the Ministry will continue to monitor these developments closely and respond where necessary to protect the interests of our country. Thank you.
Has the Ministry conducted any assessment on how the ongoing trade tensions between the major economies could affect the import costs for St. Martin? I heard you mention different scenarios, but can we get any concrete results in terms of, let's say, for instance, March of 2025 compared to April or June of 2025 and now in 2026 with the most recent developments in Iran? And of course, as you mentioned, given our heavy reliance on imports, can the Minister indicate which products the Ministry believes are most vulnerable to the price increase or shipping disruptions in the current global environment? Through you, Madam Chair. In situations like this, the private sector often notices price changes before the government does. Has the Ministry engaged with the wholesalers, retailers, and shipping agents and the Chamber of Commerce, for instance, to determine whether they are already seeing early signs of pressure in the supply chains in terms of the import costs? If not, would the Minister consider establishing a periodic consultation with the private sector so that government can review and receive early signals to respond more proactively in these potential developments? Madam Chair, another concern that comes to mind is the cost of living, which many of us face on a daily basis and face with discussions from our citizens. I would like to know through you, Minister, has the ministry conducted any scenario planning on how the global trade tension could affect the inflation on the overall cost of living on St. Martin? For instance, if the tariffs of the geopolitical tensions drive up the cost of construction materials internationally, what impact does that have, or what impact does the ministry expect it could have on the housing costs, development of projects, and even regular public infrastructure? Madam Chair, a practical step that the government could consider is strengthening how we monitor our economic development. And with that being said, I would like to know if the minister is open to consider establishing a small economic monitoring platform with the Chamber of Commerce and key businesses so that the sector could keep track of global developments that may affect import, supply chains, and prices locally. I know that there was a seminar a couple of weeks ago that the minister held with various key stakeholders. I think that out of that same, constellation of individuals or institutions, you can find the key persons that would know directly how it affects and also involve somebody from social affairs. That would be my suggestion. So I would like to know, through you, Madam Chair, if the minister would be open to something like that. Minister, has the ministry assessed whether the economic uncertainty in major markets could eventually influence visitor behavior in St. Martin? For example, travelers beginning to reduce the discretionary spending that they do when they come here. If that risk exists, what steps is the government taking to ensure that St. Martin remains competitive and attractive destination even during uncertain global economic periods? Madam Chair, through you to the minister, has the ministry reviewed whether the current basket of goods is being monitored still accurately and if it reflects the households in St. Martin are actually purchasing today, especially considering the changing in consumption patterns and the rising costs? If the global trade development begin pushing up costs of basic items, is the government considering strengthening the monitoring of the basket of goods so that price changes can be identified early and communicated clearly to the public? Madam Chair, another practical measure could be using the baskets of goods data more actively as a policy tool. Is the ministry exploring whether the baskets of goods analysis can be used more proactively to guide policy responses when essential items experience a sudden or sustained price increases? Finally, through you, Madam Chair, Minister, in your view, what is currently the single greatest economic vulnerability for St. Martin in the context of shifting global trade dynamics, and what concrete steps is the government taking right now to ensure that St. Martin is better prepared? I know that this is a sensitive question, so I would accept if it's given in writing, because of course I don't want to jeopardize our position as a regional competitor. And I want to say this. A couple of days ago, a colleague mentioned heavy is the head that wears the crown, but I also believe that with great power comes great responsibility. And the economy is in your hands, Minister. Right now we have different things taking place across the globe. We have our own things dealing with home, the rise in crime, the rise in poverty, the rise in unemployment. And I mentioned something earlier today, notifications, and I hope that we could be taking this serious, because at the end of the day, we all live here in St. Martin, and the crime affects everybody. It does not discriminate. And later, we don't want to say what we could have or should have done.
At moments like these, it's important that we occasionally take the step back to take a look at the entire picture of things and the bigger picture of things. The international situation is clearly shifting beneath our feet. Oil prices are rising again, gas markets remain volatile, and small island economies like ours feel these shocks first and the hardest. When energy prices rise, as the minister stated in her presentation, it does not only stay in the fuel tank, it moves through the entire economy. Electricity goes up, transport goes up, food prices rise, and eventually the cost of living also rises for our people. Through you, Madam Chair, the minister recently, not recently, but lately had an article, or at least an article was written by something the minister said, where she stated that on the side of tourism, islands in the Caribbean or region should not be competing with one another, but working with one another to make one total product. At least that's what I deduce from what she said. And basically some people agreed with the minister, some people disagreed, some people laughed, some people called her crazy. I, on the other hand, would be hypocritical if I was to stand here and say I disagree with what the minister said. Actually, it was a similar question was posed by myself to the minister last year when I asked the minister if she believes in decentralized tourism. I wrote an entire article on the topic, so it would be kind of hypocritical of me to say now otherwise. But so it's safe enough to say that that resonated with me, what basically the stance of the minister on that topic. But it raises a broader thought. If decentralizing, at least if that's what I understood from what the minister stated, or something similar of it, decentralizing tourism across the Caribbean makes sense, should we also not be thinking about decentralizing economic strengths across the Caribbean? Because when global shocks happen, we see the same pattern every time, each island, or most islands, trying to face the problem alone. We import fuel from the same global markets. We import same goods, mostly from the same markets. And when prices rise, every island feels it. And this brings us to the bigger question. Is it really an island problem or a regional vulnerability? We've been trying to solve this island by island. Yet across the region, every island brings different strengths. Some have geothermal energy potential, some are moving rapidly into solar energy, some have stronger agricultural capacity, others function as transport and logistic hubs. So the question I would like to pose to the minister via you, Madam Chair, as global prices, energy prices rise and international uncertainty increases, are there conversations happening at the regional level to combat these instances? And how to, better yet, are the conversations happening on how we can support one another? And more specifically, what role does the minister envision for St. Martin in such a construct, if she believes in the construct? Because in reality, the reality is basically, if the global shocks do not stop at our border, why should our solutions to them do? So perhaps the solutions shouldn't stop at the border as well. And with that being said, Madam Chair, I would like the minister's opinion or stance. I understand maybe it's something that she hasn't worked out as yet, but just her personal view on that matter and how that would fit into the endeavor she's embarking on right now in trying to solve or mitigate the situation. With that being said, Madam Chair, after taking note of the minister's presentation, I wrote down a couple phrases that that sprung out to me. One, the minister said that the cabinet and the government are monitoring the situation. The minister had a call to action as well, and the minister explained what governments normally do in these instances. And I was going along with the presentation until then, and I was hoping that at some point in the presentation before it would end, that the minister would explain, okay, this is what governments can do, but this is what we are going to do. And that moment never came. The minister mentioned monitoring to see what will happen and then to see what the government can do on the matter afterwards. But the one thing is certain that will happen, Madam Chair, what will happen through you is basically the gas prices are going to go up, the GB prices are going to go up. These are things that we know are going to happen. Why do we still have to sit, wait, and monitor to see what and if it's going to happen? And the minister also explained through you, Madam Chair, it may mean that the public needs to do certain things and that the public wouldn't have to also make certain responsible decisions, and that I totally agree with, Madam Chair. But what it may also mean, this global crisis, is that getting the relief to the people as the government promised is now more important than ever. That is one thing for certain, and that's what it will also mean during this endeavor. Getting the promised relief to the people. Because not only gas prices, But the GB prices, just electrical prices, will be soaring. And I would also like to know, Madam Chair, in closing, this is a global shock caused by international crisis. This is not the first international crisis that the world has experienced since this government has been in office. Yet, by virtue of the presentation, I'm getting the feeling that all these things are being monitored now. So my question would be, in closing, Madam Chair, what was monitored during the last crisis, and what are the learning moments from that crisis that we could take over to this crisis, that we can actually be proactive on certain things? I understand not everything, but certain things, instead of being reactive on everything.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
But what I do not understand is often during election time, we speak about what we will do, we will assist, etc., and what we often hear afterwards, nobody can be found. Now, in this situation, I believe that everyone, if you have a child in a school, or if you have a niece or nephew, or if you just love children and you would like to assist, everyone would like to see this system better. Growing up in the Netherlands, being born in the Netherlands, I never faced a situation like this. So now, when I'm seeing that basic needs are not there, I'm like, okay, I can sit still and do not assist where I can assist, or complain that it's an issue. But we all know that it's an issue. And if we as members of parliament, or if people in the community would like to contribute by helping a hand until it's structurally arranged, I personally do not see an issue with it. I understand that you need to protect what is coming into your schools, because that's your responsibility, but protecting and not accepting while the protection has taken place, I would like to get some clarity on that. So therefore, my statement/question that is coming right now is, what do you, through you, Madam Chair, expect from the members of parliament that are willing and able to assist? What can they do? Because we are at the end here for the people, elected by the people, and we have a responsibility for all the people. And I do not agree with when you're not in the position, but you can assist, that you should just sit still. And currently, I have a feeling, and that's just my feeling and my personal feeling, that we should now sit still and just see what happens. And that doesn't go with my nature. And everybody knows that I have been one of the MPs that went into the schools with the military and assisted where assistance was requested.
And that program, the kids are looking forward to getting that program going. And one thing, I'm a person of my word, so however you turn or twist it, you know, the program with the youth will take place, but I would like it to be in collaboration with all stakeholders on board. Other than that, as well, I heard other speaker before me mention when we went to the schools in regards to reading. It was, I think, for one of the weeks. I can't remember when it was. Yeah, Literacy Month, thank you. And, you know, the students were very vocal, and they were mentioning, like, you know, we would like to have air conditions in our school. Who can relay that message, and what's going to happen? Can we get air conditioning in our schools? And, you know, that's something that's very much needed, and the kids would like to know more clarity on that. So is that a program of the ministry that will take place in the near future in the plans that are being done through the planning of the ministry? So just clear cut, what does the ministry, through you, Madam Chair, expects of the members of parliament? And other than that, it was already mentioned by, I think, colleague MP Doran, the policy that's currently in place, what that policy entails, and what timeline is being given to that policy getting approval, so that you can also properly plan and don't give false expectations. And next to that, what I also would like to know is, it was mentioned in the past when the motion in regards to the breakfast program, which was supported by the majority, but indeed my colleague MP De Wever gave her remarks in regards to why she didn't support it at that moment. But also in regards to that topic, I would like to know, seeing that's also connected to this topic, Madam Chair, how far the ministry is in regards to making sure that that connection with long-term projects will be in place, because I understood back then that what was said is that there's a collaboration ongoing with the French side, and that will hopefully be finalized in short. So therefore, I also brought forward that motion to have a temporary solution, because you have the option of sitting still and don't do anything and wait until it's eventually finalized, or you have the option of coming with a temporary solution to fill the gap, and that's more my approach. So while the ministry is working on the solutions and the structural way forward, what are the temporary solutions being put in place, and what can we as members of parliament do to assist to those temporary solutions?
Minister, you mentioned in your presentation that on the 15th, I believe the schools should be sending the emails regarding the supplies. My question is, who in the public schools, so who do we expect to be doing the controls? So I know in the subsidized schools, they have a person that deals with all of the toilets and checking everything, etc. So who in the public schools we expect to do that? Because that is then an additional burden on a teacher, on a manager to do that. So because they don't have the same staff as the subsidized schools. So, or would it be that the department would then go down every month and ensure that, to lessen the burden on the schools that deal with so much already, right? To lessen that burden to deal with it, because it seems as if, like, oh, the schools didn't send the list, so they don't know. But the ministry, as you indicated already, is in charge of this. Not that the schools are in charge, the ministry is in charge. So the ministry has to go and ensure that they have the supplies, right? So please, the Catholic School Board isn't the one to go and check the supplies of the schools, no. So, I mean, yeah. In addition to that, the minister also mentioned a policy, and it has been talked about today also. I haven't been able to see this policy published anywhere. I was checking the Lance Gazette. It maybe is published, but the policy regarding the approval or notice from the ministry before an individual or donation is allowed to happen, or a person is allowed to speak at a school, where is this policy? Is this a draft policy? Is it an internal protocol? Or is it actually a policy that has been published for all of us to see and apply? Because I wanted to follow the policy, but I haven't seen it published anywhere. So can we get an update on where this policy is published? And then when I went to a couple of schools that invited me, so I didn't ask to go to the schools asked me to go there. So doesn't the ministry believe that the schools and the managers are doing their due diligence on, hey, this person is why we want to be there, and there's no risk to the students? I mean, I think the students will be safe. Maybe when the military was there, but I mean, because they probably have weapons. But outside of the military, right? Don't we think that the schools would have done their due diligence since they're the one requesting the entity to come to the school? In addition to that, I've heard and seen that schools would send or try to follow this policy, but then they wouldn't get a reply. And then the cabinet says, okay, no, email us directly. So then, is it then that the cabinet is micromanaging the public schools? Because the department's supposed to be handling this, all right? So why would I have to go to the cabinet for approval? And now, is it an approval or is it a notice? Because initially the schools are told they need approval, but then in some responses the schools get in, it's a notice. So which one is it, approval or notice? Because if it's approval, then the reply from the cabinet or the department has to be, I see the request and we thereby approve this. Or not that, oh, we have been notified. So which one is it? And that's what I'm asking again for the exact policy. Also regarding the minister mentioned the procurement and the delays in procurement. What procurement policy are we using? Because I know one thing, when the minister sat on this side, the PFE faction were very, very, I would say, adamant that we need a procurement law and policy, all right? Mm-hmm. When I was minister, the now Minister of Justice was working on my procurement policy. It was there, the legislation. I understood it was put to the side and decided we're not going to follow through with that. So I guess we don't trust our own colleagues enough. So my question now is, where is this procurement law? Where is this procurement policy that it's been 2 years already? It was said it can be done in 6 weeks, it can be done in a month, 2 months, 3 months. So where is the law that could be done in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months or a year or 2 years? Because right now, with all the talk that we had, we're still using the same procurement law and policy that was there before. Exactly. Same thing. Even for the same garbage contract that was just recently done. And went bad, seemingly. I see in the invoices, in the image, I see some 2017, 2021, but the majority was in the time of my colleague here, MP Linda Lewis. So my question is, I see them there, but we're not in 2024 today. So why weren't they paid in 2025? I know we tried to put a spotlight on the former minister, but a whole year and a half has passed already. So why weren't they paid in 2025 or even in January 2026? And seeing those specific invoices, does that mean that there's no open standing invoices for 2025 or even 2026? Because that would mean that we just want to highlight again those of the former minister.
health insurance is SXM. Your social health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social health insurance.
Just to bring you some breaking news that we brought you earlier, just to give you more details, US CENTCOM has confirmed that 4 of the 6 crew members on board an aircraft that crashed in Iraq have died. Rescue efforts are continuing there over this refueling jet. It came down at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on March the 12th. It's a USK C-135 refueling aircraft that went down in western Iraq. As I mentioned there, the US CENTCOM is saying that 4 people were confirmed dead. They are continuing to investigate the incident, but they have said that the loss of aircraft was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire. We shall bring you more details on that as we get them. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has just landed in Beirut in what he calls a visit of solidarity with the people of Lebanon. The development comes as the Norwegian Refugee Council has warned that Lebanon is nearing a breaking point as displacement surges during the latest escalation of the war there. Official figures show at least 816,000 people, we're talking roughly 1 in 7 residents, have been forced from their homes in the first 10 days of fighting as Israeli evacuation warnings expand and airstrikes continue across the country. Let's bring in Noor Shawaf, who is the Regional Humanitarian Policy and Advocacy Advisor for the charity Oxfam, based in Beirut. Thank you for speaking to the BBC. This is an incredibly difficult situation. Can you just give us a sense of what it's like and what do people need?
The situation is getting worse every hour of the day. As long as this war continues, we are going to see more civilians being killed, more civilians in need of humanitarian aid, more civilians displaced. It's absolutely living through a nightmare. In the past few days, many of us here in Beirut and across the country have not had enough sleep. Many of us have been worried about the situation and what may come next. But those are the privileged amongst us, because those who have been forcibly displaced, those who have had to sleep on the streets, and those who have had to lose loved ones do not have the same kind of privilege of only worrying. So yes, we are very much at another brink of a catastrophe, but we've been through this way too many times.
Well, this is the challenge, isn't it? Lebanon is already a hugely fractured country. It's still recovering from the attacks by Israel. Are you previously in 2024, I believe, since September, are you essentially dealing with 2 crises here?
We're dealing with much more than 2 crises, because Lebanon has not recovered from the economic crisis. Lebanon has not recovered from the Beirut port blast. Lebanon has not recovered from the last war in November 2024. And now again, another war, more attacks by Israel, more bombardment across the country. And you know, it's really just devastating to see that kids remember what happened last year, and they are living through it again, just like their parents. I was just at a shelter and I was approached by this young child who told me, "Are they here? Is Israel in Beirut?" And those are the exact same questions that my son asks me every day, at every airstrike, at every time he hears a drone above us. Those are the questions that children, 5-year-olds, are asking today.
This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.